we have this really twisted reality as if we're dealing with facts and numbers and all this kind of stuff. Like, no, whoever said, like, ugh, that is dangerous to think that that's the case because even from decision making, decisions are made emotionally, not logically.
Welcome to Conscious Conversations with Amy Woodall and the Collective. I'm Amy Woodall, and we are so happy that you have landed here with us today. The whole premise of this show was to create a bridge between the seekers and the teachers. And in Conscious Conversations, we simply want to talk about real aspects of life that we are all faced with. The joys, the triumphs, the challenges, the stuck points, whether that's at work or at home or in the world at large. I believe that everyone who is listening to this show really gives a damn about being a good human from the inside out. And we want to bring you conversations that matter and help you do just that. Conscious Conversation listeners, this is going to be a fun conversation today. When I tell you, I have spent the last 17 minutes just on a roll with our guest, and I'm like, oh, damn, I should probably hit record at some point in time. It's been gold. So today, I am so excited to continue this conversation with Barbara Burgess, who she's a consultant, a speaker, an author, an executive coach, facilitator, and founder of Corluma. And I had a chance to get her book a while ago when you and I first met, Barbara, that you sent to me. And listen to this title, y'all. The title is Enough, period. The subtext, I think, will speak to many of us: finding peace in a world of distractions, hustle, and expectations. And I'm so grateful to have conversations with people like you, Barbara, who you've likely had experiences that have probably, like many of us, knocked us on our ass, and we had to find this for ourselves, and then it's become our mission to help teach this in the ways that we are called to in the world. So I'm excited to learn more about that and that journey, and to have our audience learn about that. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a delight to be here. And I just have to ditto Amy's comment. I think we could have gone on for 4 hours
For real.
without recording. So it's good we're recording now.
And Barbara is a fellow lover of woo. And, woo is, I don't want that to kind of be this complacent thing like, oh, it's woo woo, so we throw it off. It is the magic in our lives that we do not need scientific explanation for, because our souls instantly recognize it, and it recognizes it in ways of goosebumps as confirmation. We recognize it as ways of our heart lighting up when it comes through. And so I know we're going to get a bit into that woo in our
Well,
conversation
can I even
today too.
comment on that one? So I was
Please.
telling Amy I was teaching a class in emotional intelligence this last week, and I always try to go and update the research. Like, what did they found out now? Because I'm a full believer that the woo and science and practicality and business is all going to combine again once we remember all this wisdom we've forgotten, right? But one of the interesting things, we know the research says that our body gets the signal about something somewhere between 2 and 7 seconds before our mind does, right? So when we really think about that in our work worlds and all this kind of stuff, like, wait, why? Because the woo, how we might have dismissed some of those quote unquote soft skills, like our body is more tuned in to the other things that our cognition isn't necessarily, right? But the one that really got me, and it's emerging research, but was the fact that they're finding that our body intelligence, our emotional intelligence, which again, I would integrate right into what we would have considered woo, actually does a better job at making decisions than our cognition, right? And so, like, to really understand, we have historically talked about these things like they're different, right? Or we have dismissed them with language like they're soft and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, no, it actually takes courage to listen to yourself. It takes amazing resilience to say, I'm going to be vulnerable and feel the feeling, instead of like powering through you and playing my little corporate role, which I have rehearsed so much I could throw up.
Amen to that. I love that confirmation too. I truly think discernment is like sovereignty, and discernment are like the skill sets of this generation and to come. Can we get on that for a moment?
Oh,
Like for
please.
you,
Yes.
this whole embodiment thing, and listeners, we're really talking about like somatic practices too. But what was the time in life, or like what was your journey to learning how to trust the instincts in your body instead of letting the bitch in the attic, which that was a former guest who gave the ego
Love
that
that
name.
phrase. Yeah.
And oh bless her heart, the bitch in the attic. But instead of
That's
letting the
probably
bitch,
my not enough from the book, right?
yeah,
This critiquing dude that hangs around. Yeah.
yeah. So what's been your path of learning this discernment, embodiment, going within to find your truth?
Well, first of all, I'm already enjoying my trip out moment here. I just want to say so I pick themes for the year usually. And my two themes for 2026 living together one is embodied, right? So it really is like for myself, that next level of embodiment. And then the other is wilding. So it is like forget about all the frames and frameworks and blah, blah, blah that people have put, like, you just head out into the wild, do whatever you're led to do or whatever. But I think back to your question, boy, it's been, a journey of like my lifetime in some ways. I think, like many of us, there was some early childhood stuff that really taught me to shut down any connection between my knowing and my body because the body became a target, a dangerous thing, a vulnerable thing, a blah, 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 right? And so I think I spent my, work years, a lot of them just kind of being a walking head. But at the same time, and I talk about this in the book a little bit, but like I am walking around with this finely tuned GPS. Like my body knows stuff impeccably, in ways that I can't even speak to. And so even though like I was resistant and numb to it and ignoring it, it did not stop transmitting. It's just like the nuances, right? So a couple examples of that. I worked in retail, when I was, in high school and stuff like that. And I had two experiences in particular. One where I was like working at a little boutique in a mall kind of thing and I don't know what possessed me at the moment, but I'm standing there and a woman is coming, walking down the mall, like not real busy, so you can see somebody's going to approach. And I say to my manager who's standing behind me, I said, that woman's going to shoplift. And God bless her, this woman who was such like, I mean, practical Betty. Like that's how I would describe her. But she did just listen to me and started walking up to the front of the store. Well, by the time this woman comes in and my manager comes up there, this woman is putting a dress under her shirt. Like it is happening. She hadn't been touching anything when that bleh blurted out of my mouth, right? In retrospect, I'm like, I'm kind of embarrassed I said it because whatever, but I'm not because it worked out. I had a second example where that happened, and it was a home goods department, and my boss was a guy at that time, and we had a policy that was very generous in returns. Like you didn't need your receipt as long as you had the merchandise, blah blah blah. He came with, all these draperies and things like that that all made sense. And he was your stereotypical European white businessman who clearly was dressed well, blah, 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 blah. Like there's nothing to doubt, and all those things. And I just didn't feel good about it. And so he brought them all out. And then I had to get my manager's signature. And I walked to back and I said to this guy, shout out to Scott, who was in tune. I said, it fits all the requirements for return, but it just doesn't feel right to me. He's like, come on, come on. And he takes me down. He sits me in front of the security cameras. He's like, let's watch. And so we just sit there looking at the screens. And sure enough, like after, some seconds, you can see him moving from side to side. Then you see him looking around and then he takes off, leaves all the merchandise on the counter. Like, again, none of this is logic, right? So so there was always these little sparks through. At the same time, like I've used food to numb myself. I've used booze historically to numb myself. So there was all these ways that I think I didn't know how to be in touch with that in our world. And so I would try to numb, as much as I possibly could. And so, I would say if you go way back, it's been a love-hate relationship with my body, which I think it is for many women and many high achieving women over time. And so it's only been in the last handful of years, really, even though it's been building, like there's all these things that finally kind of click together that I'm like, this thing is freaking amazing. And even, when I started my business 5 years ago, like I integrated a lot of those woo practices into what I was doing. People didn't have to know per se, but, I do a little blessing and things before I got on. So there was these ekings in all the time. And even though I would work in, I worked in corporate settings, a number of times, but then I'm going on the biggest woo retreat. So I clearly wanted to get access to something I knew was there, but it was, it didn't always have the logical fit. I feel like this is where, I'm sorry, any women who are resisting aging, it's freaking great. because I just don't care what people think anymore and I get to do it my own way and all that kind of stuff. But you get to value all these things that, I said, emotional intelligence and some of this stuff was my superpower. And I thought it was a problem I had. Like I literally thought, I remember at one point in time where my mom was like, maybe you should think about medication, like, oh, because I'm having so many feelings. Like I'm having so many feelings because I am tuned into fricking everything and I don't know how to navigate it.
Mhm. I'd love to, like, dig into that for the other people who are like, "Yeah, I feel everything." For some of us, I think we do go through that. We feel it and we numb it. And right now, just given the state of the world and everything that we can see happening, we have access to so much information that is overwhelming. It can feel really helpless. Some people are empathic and, likely take on the emotions of other people. I believe that that's transmutation knocking on our door, is like it's asking to be transmuted through us because energy can't be created or destroyed, only changing forms. But what's the practice that you've developed or even share with other people to help that energy protection, to know, what is mine, what is theirs, and how to create that, kind of barrier in between?
It's such a good question, and I will say this is an always evolving one for me, and I will say particularly in the last handful of years, because the things I did for work weren't one-on-one clients, and once they become one-on-one clients, it's hard not to absorb. I had met with this African healer years ago, and that was one of the things he said to me. He said, "You have a great ability to notice any tiny little thing that's out of place, like to really sense that." He said, "But also," he's like, "you tend to absorb everything around you." And he's like, "That's not so good." And so it kind of woke me up a long time ago to needing that. But I do feel like I'm always working on how do I appropriately have that energy, but also cut it off. I'm also somebody who's had to work on boundaries, just literal boundaries in my life, right? So energetic boundaries need to be set just like physical or emotional or mental boundaries, right? Or, all those different things. So I do a lot of stuff. So from a, like mental perspective, like after I get off with a client, for example, like I literally do close my eyes, imagine a shower of shower of light energy that takes all of that. And I love your words better than how I would have described it, but like takes it, transmute it, puts it back where it belongs kind of thing. So it's like, yeah, I was a container, I was a vessel for a moment. And when I'm doing that, when I'm with a client, literally where I'm the most effective is where I literally imagine being in their shoes. So ask 1,000 questions. I'm one of those people. What is that person? What are they? Because I'm trying to feel it and experience it in my body at the same time. But afterward, I need to cleanse that, right? So I've done that. I will often ask for help on the other side, guides, angels, etc. Particular Archangel Michael, like to protect my energy internally, to protect it out externally. I have this visual where he's kind of like a ninja with his sword, can like cut through all of those things. So I do that as well. I will say being a parent, and particularly again, I'm a late in life mom, so I have teenagers, and that's hard. Like, you broke up with my kid, you broke up with me. Like, I just want to, I feel all the feels as if it's myself. And so one of my teachers and guides has helped me to imagine, like, I will put myself in the bubble of light. My daughter might be in the bubble of light and it's all conjoined, but I imagine it separating. So, she's feeling it, I'm aware of it, but I imagine this one big bubble, turning into two. So I've done a lot that way. I have a guide who's helped me, has said to like literally place water next to you during these sessions. And when you're done, dump the water out at the end of the day so that because water is a beautiful transmuter and absolver in itself. So lots of things that way. But I also think from the flip side of it, it's what does keep me in my lane, energetically as well versus getting into other people's. So, I'm a big nature girl. So even a walk around the block, even touching a tree, even I have a plant on my desk, like all of that helps. Listening to lovely things, like anything that grounds me, sharing a voicemail exchange with a friend who just sees me and accepts me fully, and who's also a woo, a lot of those things help just remind me of who I am and where I am. Because I think otherwise, when you do open yourself up, you and I were having this conversation. We know that time is a construct. We know that space is a construct. So when I'm opening up, it can feel quite like swimming in the vastness at some level. But again, as somebody who as a kid grew up a little too boundaryless, like I would protect myself because I was afraid of losing myself and others, because I think I've done that a lot in other experiences. And so to really be conscious of that energetically as well. Like I don't have to get absorbed. My energy can coexist, but I picture it in my mind's eye as a real material thing because I'm a very visual gal and that just helps me kind of be with it.
I think it's a good reflection for all of us. It's like we've got really good physical hygiene, but not necessarily energetic hygiene. And yet energy is all the things. Everything is energy. And part of the practice that I've learned for myself is like spending time with you and getting to build a really beautiful relationship with yourself helps you understand greater what's yours and what's theirs. But if we're always avoiding ourselves because we're scrolling on social media, we're worried about somebody else's life and what they're doing. So then our emotions are, somewhere else, or we're numbing in other ways. If we're always distracted, we don't really understand where we end and they begin. And so, yeah, feeling into that.
It's so important, and I'm flashing back now. So I started this habit, and I had a friend who supported me when my kids were younger because, that can become all consuming too, right? I was still working while I was raising kids, and it's like I'm everywhere I go, I'm taking care of somebody. And so I started these mommy getaways, is what I called them. But it would basically be I tried to do it once a quarter, but it was where I just left and I was just alone by myself. My husband would have the kids, but it would be like I might rent a cabin or something, whatever, but it was away from home and at the beginning, I felt like, again, this is that high achieving thing like, oh my gosh, I'm failing at these because I'm not coming back relaxed enough. I'm not blah, 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 blah. But I finally came up with a system that really, really worked for me. And so what I would do is I would take a notepad and I would fill the notepad with any ways I could fill my time. And everything was fair game, right? Like it could be anything from making food and, or a walk in nature or exercising, but it could also be binge watching a movie. It could be because, in those times, there was not a lot of space for anything that just let me sit with myself. And so basically what I do is I'd fill the paper. And so my job was I'd get there at night, it's like a Thursday night or Friday night, get there, check in or get into my place. And then when I would wake up in the morning and I'd sleep in as long as my butt, like again, trying to get back to your body, no alarm, no nothing. But I would wake up and look at that notepad and then I would tune into my body and say, okay, what do we want to do now? And the cool thing was, it was like, let's say I felt like going to the grocery store and making something, but it didn't have to be good. I didn't have to like it. I didn't have to finish it. I didn't have to anything, right? Like I could be partway through that and all of a sudden I'm bored with this or I don't want to be doing this anymore. I was allowed to shift gears and go somewhere else. It was truly like I'm navigating from the inside out. And so what became like a mommy getaway break just became a life habit. So I'm somebody to your point, like getting away by myself is just part of my regular routine. I don't do it as often. And I've got some good group of girlfriends that I'll get away with now that allows for that separate time and together time. But that space is invaluable. I mean, I think you're so right, and it hadn't occurred to me because I think because of the need for the thing when I was a kid, like, it is a habit that helps support me in a way because I even said this to somebody recently because I had been out of town on business, and they're like, "But let's go do something." I said, "No, no, 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 I gotta be with myself." They're like, "But you were staying in the hotel room by yourself." I'm like, "Yeah, but all day I was back-to-back sessions with different humans. Every single one of those was a different adventure where I'm on demand." I'm like, "No, I have to go be with my own thoughts." Like, I can't. I just don't have it. That cup's not full, you know? But I don't think we always give ourselves permission, and I'm just as much an addict on social media as anybody else. Like, I go through I have Instagram and TikTok on my phone, but I will go through periods where I'm just like, I'm just deleting them, deleting the app. It's not pausing, it's totally taking them off, and again, I love there's parts of it I love because obviously my, algorithms are great at curating for what we've clicked and liked, so I have a lot of beautiful spirituality, a lot of beautiful things that are inspiring on there, but that unconscious click, 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 and losing yourself is still alive and real. It doesn't even matter if it's uplifting stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the practice of just being able to lean into like what pleases me. That's what it sounds like you were able to do. And if it doesn't anymore, then that's okay with no judgment. And it's so easy for us. I think this leads into what you wrote so beautifully in the book and these lessons that I'm sure you're still teaching and still learning because this is, it's ever
Oh, I
evolving.
say when I published the book, it was not for anyone else but me. It became my teacher starting at the moment it was published, even though I had had the experiences I wrote about. So, yes, still teaching for sure.
I love that. This path, I think the concept of enough. When I first like heard the book title, I think my brain went to like enough, like stop, all right, that's enough. And instead, it's like, "Oh, enough." It's like just knowing that there's we do not have to continue to chase our enoughness in our outcomes, and I think this is where many of us who are high achievers, when we finally get sick of the game that somebody else built and yet we've been so willing to play, that we come down this path. And so, I'd love to know, like, where were you in life? What was the time? What was the place? Was it a singular moment, or was it a building upon them when you got to your, enough period?
Yeah, there was a singular moment that began that journey, which is the first story I share in the book. But basically, the point in life was I had given a very long notice at my last job. I had been there for 2 decades before I quit, and I wasn't quite sure what I was doing next. But I had given originally 11 months. I shortened it to 6 month notice. I don't recommend that, to anyone, by the way. But I cared about my team. I wanted everything transitioned, all that kind of thing. So I was at this place where I was still doing what I was doing, but all of a sudden, literally, it's like there were cracks in the sidewalks, because my whole identity had been so much around that company, my role, all that kind of thing, that there was no space for anything else for a very long time. And so there was something that happened, in opening this up. But the particular instance was I was out on my porch and I was working on my laptop. And we live in Chicago, but we have a very deep porch. So if I'm at the back of it, you can't see me from the street. You'd have to like reach up and look. And so I was just working away and, well, let me preface it. Before that had happened, I was cleaning out a closet and I found some old like sidewalk chalk that the kids had when they were little. And I'm like, I'm just going to set that outside because like my kids are too old. They're not going to go do that now. So I found like this glass jar sitting in the garage. I threw the chalk in there. I put it out on the sidewalk and I had written on the sidewalk, please write chalk or draw. I just thought in my mind at the time was like, let's just use it up. Like somebody will use that. So as I'm sitting on my laptop at that moment, I hear a little kid and their parent come by and it was just like beautiful music. I don't even know how else to say it, but like you can hear, because I'm a parent who's distracted on my phone and busy and all the things, right? But you can hear this little being just like tugging, with the parent saying, oh, can we draw? Can we draw? Can we whatever? And the parent, being very hesitant at first, right? And you understand it. They were not planning on this. They got somewhere to go, etc. But you can hear where the parent finally gives in, right? And like I'm just hearing this all in their voices, literally like it's a symphony. So this little boy is sitting there, chalking and drawing, and to hear him talk to himself, he's like, "Ooh, little blue, oh," da, da," like it was just a beautiful thing, like a kid unedited by themselves, right? And then eventually hear the parent kind of joining in, so that reluctancy went to a surrender, et cetera. So all this is happening and I'm just, kind of loving the experience. I didn't want to interrupt it. It felt like a sacred moment between the two of them. And so I wasn't going to come out from hiding or say anything. I just let them be. But when I had heard their steps walk away, I thought I'm going to go check and see. Now, to get that drawing started, I had drawn just these colorful circles, just a couple of them. So it's like, prime the pump, right? And so I expected, I'm a parent, I expected he probably drew like, a scratching of something that was like a dog, but only a parent would know it was an animal, all those kinds of things. And so that's what I'm expecting as I walk down. And I'm not exaggerating. Like I had tears in my eyes. This young human had taken those circles and turned them into planets. Like he had put rings, or I mean, I just want to cry thinking about it. I find pictures of the universe just beautiful. I mean, to me, it's like this is why we know something bigger exists. But he had, put stars in this whole thing. So I'm looking at my sidewalk and I'm seeing the universe from a kid's perspective, after this moment. And I had a physical experience. It literally, like, I felt immobilized, like somebody stopped me, and I had tears come to my eyes. But it also was this like warmth, this sensation that came somewhere from the inside and like kind of moved up from my gut and heart and went all the way out to my body. And it was almost that sensation of like, if you had stress, it would melt off like wax, like it was just, and it was just the sense of like all is well, this sense of enough, this sense of whatever. And that's in the book. She is a character to me. Enough is a character. And that's where I feel like she came into my life in a way that was unexpected, hadn't planned on it, et cetera. And so truly it was like, wow, like who is this? What is this feeling, this energy, this entity, et cetera? And so that started it. I had no intent to write a book. I mean, I wasn't gonna write it, but I thought if I wrote one, it'd be something business related. But I captured that story down. And then it was like, as she moved into my life, all these things kept happening. It was story after story after story after story. It was just like it was probably what had been there all along, but I had built such a fortress that I didn't experience it and feel it. And so it became me documenting these things till all of a sudden, and you're familiar with, but this voice inside my head is like, "Yeah, you're gonna publish this, like, you're gonna put it in a book, you're gonna whatever." I'm like, Really? Really?" And again, I worked with people who were authors. I'm like, "I'm not that's exhausting." Like, I'm not there's a little resistance on my part. And I knew it wasn't like something I was gonna go push from a marketing perspective, but I also don't argue with spirit when it knocks that loud. So I was like, "Okay, fine." And so it truly became this thing I kept doing almost as a spiritual practice because I was supposed to. I'm like, "You're supposed to birth this thing. Let's go birth this thing." And that's where I say, once it was published, I really realized, oh, all those concepts that you've been catching and learning, they were meant to inform this whole next journey of my own life. And if along the way it also happens to touch or inform somebody else, like what a beautiful thing.
Ladies, imagine taking time away to work on you. Meditation, yoga, transformational work, a chance to have grand adventures and build lasting relationships. Desiree Garcia and I founded High Vibe Tribe Retreats to create just that. And if you're curious about joining us on our next retreat, head over to highvibetriberetreat.com. Link in the show notes.
I love this documentation, and like in that moment, what I hear is like you felt the wholeness, which is what we are looking for. I mean, I had an experience where I like instantly felt, was reminded of wholeness. And as high achievers, I think that's something we've got to be reminded of is like these epiphanies aren't a getting to, it's a remembering. And we spend our whole life chasing like after something, and ultimately it's a remembering that we're really seeking. And I
Well, and
remember,
and to that point, like, when I'm pushing and achieving and doing the next thing, like, that's where I think it doesn't have a lot of room, right? Like, I mean, we know this about creativity that the idea strikes you in the shower, but I feel like, I hadn't created enough space because I kept thinking that next achievement would bring me that feeling. If I just got there, then I'm gonna feel that way, and we both know, like, yeah, no, that's kinda not how it works.
no, no. When the wholeness met me, I remember being like, oh, I've been trying to fill the holes, HOLE, with the things and the title or the next achievement, whatever felt like it was supposed to be. And in truth, it was just a remembering of wholeness that I was really looking for all along.
I'm just gonna interrupt you. I just so like poet. You've said several things that are mic drop poet moments, but like when the wholeness met me, I mean, that just brings me to tears. Like, what a beautiful description of that sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so great to know, like, it's the wholeness that connects all of us where when we get to that remembering is like, it's like, it's the deepest sigh we've been expecting our calendars or something to give us that it doesn't exist there. It doesn't, and then there's also the dance between that experience, which we are fully embodied in for almost a moment. And then we get ripped back into the life that needs something of us and the expectations we have of ourselves and the bitch in the attic and what's happening, all of those things. And so, for you now and even like post writing this book and some of those experiences, what are your enoughness reminders? How do you get back centered within that? How do you embody that remembrance as well?
Well, it's such a good I just wanna go backwards for a second, like, the reality is I came to choose and to live in this experience with very practical things that are other than that wholeness. I really do believe, like, when we transition from this space, that's what we immediately sense is that wholeness again, right? But we also chose to be here experiencing that in a much more binary way, right? And so, I've been on a lot of sacred pilgrimages in my life all over the world, and I think that was the piece that always had a little bit of a rub is like, all right, like I've met a lot of spiritual leaders, like, great, you're a monk living in a cave. I can imagine you are going to bliss out all the time and be in those spaces, but like that's not the journey I chose. I'm a householder. It's their language for somebody who, married, children, jobs, all the kinds of things. I think it's really important that we don't put the expectation on ourselves as one more to do that we have to hit that space again, right? because otherwise, and I say this often, so like I went to go meet a friend. We went to this tea and journaling thing here, and I was stressed and thinking like I have a hard thing I'm trying to sort out. And as soon as I got to see the two friends, my one was like, breathe, breathe. And I got mad. And I feel like it's appropriately mad. Like, no, this moment, I don't have to be soft and loving and universal and spiritual and loving. I don't. I get to be pissed off because what I was just with is something to be appropriately pissed off about, right? And so, like, I worry about if we make spirituality or metaphysics or any of those kinds of things one more to do, right? So I always say that about the enough space. It's for me, it's like the same practices we were talking about that cultivate me being embodied and in my relationship with myself are also the things that help me touch that space more frequently. But I know that post book at the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, I was getting away from it, and then that becomes like a thing like, no, 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 you got a glimpse of something that you get to taste periodically. I do know that there are different ways where will get there more frequently. So just even though I don't do that getaway in the same prescribed way, when I really listen to my body and what it wants in any moment, even if it's irrational or illogical, that leads me to that sense more often, and sometimes it's like an SNL skit to watch so I can just laugh my butt off. And other times it's like dancing by myself in the house to some good song, like it could be anything, but it is that tuning in again. I think our bodies know what we're needing and wanting and how to, remember about those pieces and senses. And so I just feel like the more I live in my own unedited sense of being myself and give myself permission for all of it, permission to be a bitch, permission to be loving, permission, like the more that I'm in there, the more I'm in that kind of flow of what I consider my energy lane, then I am more likely to touch that space. But if I make it too prescriptive for me, I just feel like I'm failing another to do.
I think this is such a good conversation, and you know, it's easy for us to sort of there can be spiritual ego, like we think, oh, I've overcome my ego, and ego, the protective and the judgmental and all of that. And we can have these great spiritual experiences. And then spiritual ego can be now judgmental for being human and for having these experiences. And if it isn't always love and light, then it's not good. And I love the permission to be human, permission to have all of the experiences and to have compassion for yourself and for others, to recognize, look, they're in their humanness too.
Yes, and they get to be. They don't have to be somebody else so that we can feel more comfortable. And that's I will say my current learning. I was journaling about this yesterday because it's not like I don't have people that bug the crap out of me, right? And I'm also not going to be like, oh, I forgive, even if you just violated my trust, right? I'm not going to do that either. But I did try to I was just writing through, I have a little template I follow that is really related to the emotional intelligence work, but it's like, what's the pure, like I talk about the signal versus the noise, right? There's pure signal of communication that we give each other and pure emotions that happen. And then there's a bunch of noise. The noise goes into the I'm not good enough and they're a jerk and da da. Like that's just a lot of the noise based on my own self-protection thing. But the pure feeling is I'm afraid, I'm irritated. Like there's some pure emotions happening and coming through. So I was walking myself through this. But at the end of it, I added on a piece I had never added before. And the top of it was like, what could all the other possibilities be? Because I think this is our job in trying to understand that we're all the same, is putting myself in their shoes. And so this person that irritated me and that kind of betrayed me, I'm like, we never know what everyone's all experiences could do. Even as humans, we blot out stuff that is painful for us, right? So I just started writing like all the ways that this could have been a self-protective thing for this person to betray me. All the blah blah blah. And the truth is I don't know the answer and I'll never know the answer and she may never know the answer, but it allowed me to have that differing perspective, right? To create that little bit of crack to be curious about it. But it also didn't mean, because I used to spend a lot of my time trying to educate other people about their unconsciousness, right? And I'm like, oh, I also don't have to do that. She gets to be exactly who she is. I get to be exactly who I am. And as we both do that, there is a much more, to me, authentic piece of that dance. I also just, it's my spiritual beliefs, but I think I picked, like, this is part of me coming to terms with my body. I think I picked this avatar in the simulation. I picked her to be 5'3" and, have weight challenges. Like, I think I picked it all, right? And that's not to justify someone doing harm. I don't mean that. But in that sense, like, I could want them to be different or I could want to be different, but like, doesn't that kind of go against like my lessons I came here for or experiences? Like my vision, like if there's a God, a spirit, a thing, however we want to describe it, my vision is at the end they'll be like, so what'd you think? Like not like judgy, not this, that, not good, bad, right or wrong. Like you picked this game. What'd you think? How'd it go?
Yeah, I love oh, that would be fun. That
Yeah,
would
it
be
helps me
fun.
have perspective on, my judging of myself, my judging of other people, etcetera. Like they picked their own adventure too.
Yeah. I like that reflection on when somebody harms you. It reminds me of I think it's a Course in Miracle phrase that Marianne Williamson often quotes, which is only that which I'm not giving can be missing from any situation. And that reflection of even if like forgiveness isn't what was required there, you went into curiosity. And that was something that's like, I can go into curiosity not for justification purposes, but to help create a deeper understanding to recognize that it's got to be deeper than what I can see. And I think that is that's such an act of bravery and compassion when we can do that because we've had Cy Wakeman on the show who I adore. I think she's written, I love many of her things, but she will say that venting is ego's way of avoiding self-reflection. And whether we're venting to ourselves in our own head or somebody around us, there is a lesson. There's a lesson kind of waiting to be like, when you're ready, I'm right
I'm
here.
here.
I'm here. And it
Teachers
doesn't
at
have,
the
yeah,
lectern. Yeah.
it doesn't mean we have to like be best friends but can we at some point in time see they're human like me and I can hold this boundary. And Ram Dass, how he would say everybody's just God in drag.
Yep.
That it kind of helps with the practice to be like, wow, look what I did to myself.
Yep. Well, and I think even to that point again, where the spiritual explorer in me is always at tension with this householder, like Ramakrishna's work really is about that. Like we are all one, right? So you and I, we're talking to ourselves. That's really what's happening, right? There's some part of us, which I think it's easier when you're around like-minded, but when you're around somebody who's so different and so triggering to your unfinished business to really realize that piece of it and how do you make sense of it? But I love what you were just saying is like, there is I love the bravery term, but a complexity to understanding that like both, it's they say two things can be true. I'm like 10 things can be true, right? It can be true that you harmed me. It can be true that I'm choosing a boundary. It can be true that I can understand what your perspective is. It can be true that I don't like what your choice was. It can be true. Like there's so many things that can be true in a moment. But to your point, when I find myself really in that super ego kicking and screaming, bitching, gossiping, whatever it is, it's usually because I feel vulnerable at some level or I feel some sense of not enough, and so there is an invitation almost sitting there waiting, and it's why I love that you picked brave because I think, again, from a sensorial perspective, from an embodied perspective, somatic, emotional intelligence, will I be brave enough, to sit with my own discomfort about myself? Will I be brave enough to say, well, I was kind of an arrogant, meh, in that moment? And I think that's way braver than even doing the pious quote unquote thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And take this and I mean, we both do work in the corporate world and I'm sure incorporate these deep lessons we've learned for ourselves in different ways, in ways that can be alchemized and listened to by those audiences. So many people, leaders, they're dealing with a lot of people's shit that they're not willing to sit with themselves and they want to go dump it and now we've got this department against this department and it's just we've got all of the chaos and truly it's a lot of unhealed not enoughness that is being projected and made somebody else's responsibility. And so what is I know that's a lot there, but like if you could go into every corporation in the world and teach them this one thing, what would that be?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just that whole perspective, like I do talk about this when I'm with leaders. Like you literally do have everybody's unconscious business in addition to your own that we're dealing with. But I think again, in particularly in this last class I was teaching about emotional intelligence, like I think the most important thing is to just know that we have this really twisted reality as if we're dealing with facts and numbers and all this kind of stuff. Like, no, whoever said like, ugh, that is dangerous to think that that's the case because even from decision making, decisions are made emotionally, not logically, right? The commercials that are out there appeal to our emotions. Like the drugs we're selling are not based on the logic of the science and what neurotransmitter it does. It's like, hey, be out on your boat with your what I, right? So to understand that like our workplaces are really, there's a lot going on. It's emotional, it's all that kind of stuff. But I think to your question, like I think if there was one thing I could teach, it would be everybody looking inside themselves, right? It would be, which we try to do when we're teaching emotional intelligence, is like, what's going on with me, right? Because I can't change and control all of that out there, but I can understand. And my belief in that emotional intelligence realm, and in the spiritual realm is I can only see outside there something that I have seen inside here. And so if I'm blocking myself from looking inside, then I can't see it in you. So I can't have empathy unless I can feel pain, unless I can be in touch with my own hurt, right? But it's true for all the things. I will demonize you and make you a bitch if I don't realize I can be a bitch too. Like all of those pieces. And so I do really think that deep introspection and looking at the different perspectives is super useful. Like that's where I would start my quote unquote curriculum. And then, also understanding like what can we affect and not affect, right? Like I can do what I'm best informed by given my wisdom and my nervous system and all those kinds of things, but I can't actually make you make a different choice. And so, like, we're constantly bumping up against that calibration, right? And that's why eventually we do realize, oh, I'm now done giving here. It's time for me to leave this company because there is no longer a space at which I feel like my choosing has a home, right? And so those are the places to go. But up until that point, there's still experiments to have. There's things to try. And my experience is we don't often try those things because we're so afraid of going against the norms. But when you get to the place where it's like, well, it's either this or me going, like, let me try out some of that stuff, right? So can I assert myself with a boss, even if they're narcissistic? I mean, I worked for a narcissistic boss for 2 decades. Wish I wouldn't have done it for so long. I regret that. But I sure got some good skills on how to be with a narcissist, right? So, like, all of those skill development possibilities. But I think we have to start with ourselves and recognizing that, gosh, it's, oh my gosh, there's a woman that has a great quote that Shonda rhymes, but she basically says, for us to recognize that workplaces are emotional too, and that, some of the things that matter are these other spaces. But I think if we could just have that recognition and understand this is the water that we're swimming in. You can make up everything else that it's logic and it's business decisions. It is not. It is not, you know?
Yeah, I think it's I share this constantly is like do not say it's business like it's not personal, it's business. It's all this is human. Hey, humans cannot detach themselves. You're using humans for outcomes to make money. You've got to think about the humans that are involved in it. It's all personal, you know?
Yeah. And I think the hopeful thing is it's all learnable too. Like, I'm sure if both of us reflect back on 3 decades ago, whatever we were doing business wise compared to now, like, I like how I handle things better now than I did then. It was all practice, right? Like, let me try this. Did it work or not work? Let me try this. Did it work or not work? Right? Like, we have to be willing to try stuff out and adjust, et cetera, ourselves over time. And it does take time sometimes. Sometimes there's the blinding lights of insights, which are beautiful, but other times, like, we got to kind of practice how to be human with each other. And right now in our world, we're not demonstrating that real well.
Yeah, I think what a great way to practice this is, when you are online or you are reading the comments or I have this phrase that I share over and over. It's a good reminder for myself, but I'm the best version of me when life is going according to my plan and everyone agrees with everything I think is true.
Oh
Like,
my
of
gosh,
course,
that's
I'm such a
brilliant.
good person then. I'm so good. But the minute that I get squeezed because somebody is disagreeing, they have a different of opinion, the minute that my buttons get pushed, that's really when I get to see what my own integrity, I really get to like understand what's true about myself. Not when everybody's saying, "Wow, that's so great. You're so smart." I
Oh my gosh, and I
agree.
just had one of those. It was, 2 days ago, but I realized, like, because I was like, "Oh my god," I went from, like, this, "Oh, expanded, my heart was open space, I'd been driving, all this kinda stuff," to, like, like, and it was that fast, right? But I was like, "Oh," it was a hangry moment, right? Like, again, those things that, push those buttons is when I'm tired, when I'm hungry, those can help exacerbate, right? But to your point, like, it was a lovely little humbling moment, like, "Okay, honey, like, you're not all light and floating, okay? Bless you." but you're still just as human as the next person.
Yeah. How human, how
Yeah.
human. Well, I have loved our time together, and I feel like we could do a 4-hour whole session on all the things, and all the ways and all the places. I think what would be really great, I'd love for our listeners to hear from you before we wrap up. A part of this book, and I think even the culture shift that we're experiencing for people that are high achievers, are trying to learn how to go from being the hustle and the grind. But there's a fear of, I've identified myself around being a high achiever. Hustle and grind is a badge of honor because if it's hard, it means I earned it. It means I earned it more than other people. And when they get exhausted by that because it's no longer working for them, I think we often then have the fear of like, well, who am I now? Do I just not do anything? Do I not succeed at all? And so can you share with us a little bit about that transition from hustle and grind into like trust, flow, and enoughness?
Yeah, so I'll just talk about my experience of it because I think I was always driving myself because I was afraid if I didn't, I'd sit on the couch, eat 1,000 bonbons, and, like, not live at all. Like, I think I literally was like it's almost like I was always whipping myself, right? Because if I didn't do this, I'd probably just be a lazy, no good fill in the blank, which are all, unfinished messages from childhood, right? But I will say what my experience has been is when I literally allowed the sense of enoughness into my life. And that's how it feels to me. Like, am I willing to allow that in and receive? Like, one of my still big things I'm learning this lifetime is how to receive. And so when I did that and deliberately put some to-dos in that were cracks, right? Like, put in some things like I have a rule for myself because I'll sit on Zoom all day long. Like, that's when I'm making the most money, right? But it's so bad for your body and your spirit. So if somebody ends 10 minutes early, then like my rule to myself is I will get up and go outside. Like I don't, it could be a minute, it could be a walk around the block, it could be whatever, but like putting the cracks in the sidewalk, right? So there's space for something more. But in that space of being with the drive, what I found was the more I allowed in the enoughness, the peace, the ease, the gentleness, the kindness, I actually did more than I thought I could do before. And that was the thing that has been the most like it kind of busted that belief, but it's not from the same place. Like I did a one-woman show for one night only here in Chicago. I wrote it, I performed it, I did the whole thing, and it was like this. It was like in a minute, right? But it was because with this sense of enoughness, there's almost like nothing to lose in moving, right? Like we have resistance on both sides. And so my experience was quite the opposite. The more I could have let enough in the cracks and the slowing down into my life, the more of the true delightful achievements were happening that really brought massive fulfillment to me. But I had to break my own rules. Like I think that's part of it. And that's where I say in the book, you can hear enough's voice, but you can hear not enough's voice. And I think it's just as important that we're in relationship with it's probably the bitch in the attic from your other, the not enough voice, because to me, I turned him into a character. Like that was part of my coping mechanism so that when I hear that, I'm like, oh, I see you there. You're hilarious, not listening. Like I think there's something about that distancing because otherwise that cha-cha will be like, you're not allowed to take a break. You're not allowed to relax. You're not allowed to, what about this? There's more emails to be did. Yeah, there is always, right? And so for me, it became a self-fulfilling prophecy in a positive direction that I found, wow, this fills up my cup. Wow, the more I allow, like I didn't die. My business did better. All of those, interdictions that I had in my head kind of have fallen away. It doesn't mean I don't still get stuck there, but I know not to take it as seriously. And I always say this like with my own work and when I'm working with clients, like we still have these patterns. It's just we turn the volume down a lot, So it's like, yeah, that voice is still there, but it's real quiet. And I can learn to, be in relationship and ignore it. But it helped my little productive self, which, by the way, like even Kristen Neff's book on self compassion, I think is really foundational in this way as well, because her research, longitudinal research shows that we're more productive when we're kind to ourselves. Like when you start to like let your driving business research mind realize the research points in the opposite direction, I think it helps calm the nervous system and be like, oh, then maybe it's okay for us to do this.
Yeah, I love the evidence gathering. And it feels like the visual I was getting there as you were sharing that is like we're often swimming upstream. Hustle and grind is kind of swimming against the flow. And it's because we feel like we're all on our own. But when we trust and open up to a greater support greater guidance, and we just let go and we float on our damn backs, the vision and like the abundance that comes our way is bigger than friction could have ever brought to us. And
Okay, I
love that.
love that. I'm stealing it. I will give
Yes,
credit
please
to
do.
Amy, but that's exactly it. And I think like the Tao talks about that, right? There's like historical, faith, writings about it, but it's different than experiencing it in real life. But your visual is spot on.
Well, we've all been there. Thank you. Just thank you for being here and being you and showing up as like your real, raw, authentic self and sharing your woo and your insight and your wisdom. It's really been fun. So thank
Thank you.
you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. It was so nice to be able to relax into those spaces where nobody's driving 3 bullet points today.
No, but I know our listeners are going to want to find more of you and more of what you're doing. And so, what are the best places for them to get connected to you?
Yeah, I think to find the book, like it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, but you have to look for Enough by Barbara Burgess because there are a number of Enough books with all different themes and things like that. But my website too, corluma.com, corluma.com, which is my business and my coaching and my speaking. There's a whole section on the book in there as well.
Love it. Thank you. Big love to you. This has
Same to
been
you.
so
And I'm going to say
fun.
to be continued because we're not done in this.
I feel that too, for sure, for sure. Thank you for listening to Conscious Conversations. We are so grateful that you've spent this time with us. And if you loved this episode, we invite you to consider liking, sharing, rating, reviewing the show so that more people can find us. And if you have the desire to connect with more like-hearted humans like you on this planet, come join us in the PFN community under Conscious Conversations.